Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron and welcome back today to another live stream. It is the game review, the first game review of the 2023-2024 Premier League season. Everton 0, Fulham 1 at Goodison Park on Saturday afternoon. Sean Dyche's Toffees opening up the new Premier League season with a defeat. Unfortunately, a very frustrating game. A very, I'd say a very frustrating 90 minutes of football. Certainly one that I felt Everton should have got more from. You know, the amount of opportunities that we had, the amount of clear-cut chances that we had to come away from that game with no points is quite baffling, really, especially when you consider, you know, it's an opening game of the season, Goodison Park, you know, wanting to start the season off positively, wanting to get a win under our belt straight away to be able to build on and move forward with. It is extremely frustrating and you know, sort of angering when you leave Goodison Park on an evening like Saturday with a defeat. Again, obviously we did the instant match reaction directly after the game, and I was quite visibly upset and frustrated at it. And I had a couple of people sort of commenting saying, well, it's only the first game of the season, Cam. Why are you so frustrated? Why are you so annoyed at that, you know, result and performance? We created a lot of opportunities and we were unlucky, and on another day, you know, maybe we'd have scored a couple of goals and maybe we'd have gone on and won that game. And whilst that all might be true, I don't think we're in a position as a football club, or certainly haven't been in the position as a football club the last 2 years, to be able to look at a game like Saturday and think, well, that's all right because it's the first game of the season. Everton have barely survived relegation the last 2 seasons on the bounce. We survived relegation last season on the last day of the season. At half-time in that game, with 45 minutes of a Premier League season left to play, Everton were relegated, Everton were down, Everton were playing Championship football this season. Luckily for us, and thankfully for us, we managed to get a goal in that second half and ultimately managed to stay up off the back of that goal. But with 45 minutes to go, Everton were in the relegation zone and staring down the barrel of, you know, being relegated from the Premier League. So that for me intensifies and further sort of, you know, sort of further emphasises the importance on games of football at Goodison Park. Games of football that we deem winnable at Goodison Park. If Everton had lost on Saturday to Chelsea at Stamford Bridge, or Manchester City at the Etihad, or, you know, Liverpool at Anfield, then I probably would be sitting here saying, do you know what, we created a lot of opportunities there. On another day we might have got something out of that game, but we moved forward. But Everton have lost, for me, what was a very, very winnable game of football. And we sat here and we done the season preview on Thursday, and I said, if Everton are wanting to be safe this season and Everton are wanting to be in a position come March, April time where we're not having to look over our shoulder, where we're already safe and whatever happens in our games doesn't matter because we've already got no chance of relegation, then we need to start making sure that we are winning those winnable games at Goodison Park. The reason we have been where we have been for the last 2 seasons isn't because we've lost at Old Trafford, or we've lost at Anfield, or we haven't won at Stamford Bridge. It's because we've lost at Goodison against teams that we simply have to be beating. Wolves last season, Southampton last season, you know, the season before, various games at Goodison Park that we lost that we shouldn't have lost. And whilst Fulham obviously on a sort of relegation rival at this point, and whilst Fulham had a good season last season, they did well, you know, they obviously are looking to build on that. This game for me is one that Everton should have been winning, and it was the same when we played this fixture towards the back end of last season. I sat there on the preview and said, this is the most winnable game out of all of the games we've got left, and Fulham turned up on that day and they beat us 3-1 because they're the better team and they deserved it. However, Saturday wasn't like that. Saturday, Everton were the better team. Everton had the better chances. Everton should have gone in 3 or 4-0 up at half time. Never mind come away winning that game. And that, for me, is what is so frustrating. Whilst I understand the positive of, well, we created chances and typically in the last sort of 12, 24 months, we haven't really created that many chances, so at least it's a positive. But I don't really care whether Everton create 164 chances in a game of football or whether Everton don't create a single chance. What I care about is Everton winning. And I would rather Everton win having only created one opportunity than Everton lose having created 19 chances or whatever we had on goal. Whilst Fulham are a decent side and will probably have a decent season again this season, not if they play like they did on Saturday. If they play like they did on Saturday, they'll be in a relegation battle because they were really, really poor. But they probably will have a decent season. That still is a game that Everton should have been winning. And I stick to my point that the reason we have been in a relegation battle for the last 2 seasons on the bounce is because we are not winning those games at Goodison Park that we should be winning. And people might say, it's only one game, Cam, don't get too excited about it. You know, it's not the end of the world, this, that, and that. I get that completely. There's still a ridiculous amount of football to be played. There's still probably a number of deals to be done in the transfer window that will change the outcome of this season dramatically. We've already seen Everton go out in the last 24 hours or so and bring in Jack Harrison. He was a player that Everton hadn't signed before the game on Saturday. Whilst I understand and I appreciate that, I'm also somebody that looks to the near future. And I'm looking at the next couple of weeks and thinking, well, if we lose to Aston Villa on Sunday, which is very possible and wouldn't be, the most dramatic result in the world. Aston Villa are a good side. I know they got beaten quite heavily at the weekend by Newcastle, but they're a good side. They're a side that will certainly, fight for those European places again this season. They've got European football. They've got a brilliant manager. It's a home fixture for them. They'll be looking to bounce back. Everton haven't got a good record at Villa Park in recent years anyway. Even when Aston Villa weren't very good, we didn't have a good record there. So it's very possible that Everton lose on Sunday, or certainly don't win on Sunday against Villa. And then we've got Wolves at home. Another game of football at Goodison Park against a side that Everton simply have to be beating. Imagine we lost that game as well. That's 3 defeats on the bounce, 2 of them being home fixtures against teams we should be beating. All of a sudden, pressure starts rising. And I know you could say, yeah, but Cam, we could beat Villa and then we could beat Wolves. We could lose to Villa and then beat Wolves, and we just say, you know what, that game against Fulham was a one-off. We'll move on from it. But for me, Saturday was just so frustrating for so many reasons. And the big sort of one for me was the amount of opportunities that we had. Now, I just want to, before I go any further into this review, I just want to talk about one thing. As I've seen a lot on social media over the last 24 hours or so, and certainly in the fallout of that result on Saturday regarding Neal Maupay. And Neal Maupay undeservingly being abused on social media because of him missing a few chances or Everton not winning that game. And I just want to say that it's absolutely disgraceful that any footballer receives, or any human, but in this case any footballer receives that sort of personal abuse and vile threats and words because of what was not a great performance. Don't get me wrong, I do a YouTube channel, so I will often criticise footballers based on their performance, based on whether or not I believe they're good enough to play for the club or whether or not they played well enough. But there is a line, and far too often that line is overstepped by people, and the personal insults begin and the threats begin, and it just becomes vile, and there's absolutely no need for that. It's not Neal Maupay's fault that Everton didn't win on Saturday. It's not Neal Maupay's fault that he starts for Everton Football Club. It's not Neal Maupay's fault that he was signed for 15 million quid and given a decent contract. That isn't Neal Maupay's fault. Is he good enough to play for Everton? No, he isn't, and I think Saturday proved that, and I think Saturday proved that he's not good enough to be our starting striker. However, that doesn't mean he deserves to be abused. That doesn't mean he deserves to be threatened because of a game of football. I actually felt a little bit sorry for Neil Maupay on Saturday, to be honest with you, because he very clearly is lacking confidence. Very, very clearly lacking confidence. The goal, he must look at that goal and it must be inches wide to him at the moment. And I actually, for what it's worth, and I'm not going back on my point here because I did the instant match reaction and I said that I don't think he's good enough, and I said I think he was poor, and I agree. I said in the instant match reaction his job is to score goals and he doesn't do that, and I still agree with that. But I actually think his overall play was better than anything I've ever seen from him in an Everton shirt before. He got himself into good areas. His movement was much better. He was involved. He was putting himself about. He had chances on goal. He just isn't good enough. And, that can be said, and that can be fairly observed, and that can be fairly stated without the need for any personal abuse or personal sort of threats. I don't hate Neil Maupay. I'm not going to go out my way to have a go at him personally or comment on his Instagram saying, get out of the club, you this, you that, the other. He's just not good enough. But that's nothing we haven't known previously. He isn't good enough to play in the Premier League. It's as simple as that, but that doesn't mean he deserves to be threatened or he deserves to be abused on social media, because that's just not on. That's just getting to a point now where you're overstepping the mark. Have an opinion, fair. Sit here and say he's not good enough, fair. I'll sit here, as I said on Saturday afternoon, he does a lot right, but he doesn't score, and that's what we need him to do, and therefore I don't think he's good enough. Fine. Same with Nathan Patterson. I sat here and I criticised him massively, but I didn't abuse him, and I didn't personally threaten him or have a go at him. I just said he was awful the other day, because he was. So I just wanted to get that out the way because, again, there's a fine line between giving somebody criticism and then if that becoming abusive and that becoming threatening and that becoming confrontational, and there is no need for that to be the case. But, yeah, like I said, Everton had chances and many of them as well, and ultimately maybe on another day we'd have taken one or two of those chances and we'd have won that game and we'd have been sitting here with a much happier expression on our faces. But we didn't miss those opportunities because Baird and Leno had a fantastic game. We didn't miss those chances because we were unlucky, or one rifled off the bar, or one rifled off the post, or one was was saved brilliantly, and one was a penalty that was saved, whatever. We missed those chances because ultimately the ability of pretty much every one of these players in the final third is atrocious. From their final ball to their ability in front of goal to their decision making in front of goal, it feels like there isn't one footballer at this club who, and some people would give the Dominic Calvert-Lewin arguments, and maybe there's an argument there to be had about Dominic Calvert-Lewin, but ultimately we're not going to have it because he wasn't on the pitch. But it feels like there isn't one player at this football club that when they get in front of goal, they back themselves and they confidently go, do you know what, I'm scoring here. Or they walk onto that pitch, before the first whistle is blown, when they walk out that tunnel and they think, do you know what, I'm scoring today, I'm having a go today. I watched an interview with Ben Chilwell yesterday after Chelsea's tour with Liverpool, and Chelsea's new centre-back, I've completely forgot his name, I apologise, but he scored in the game for Chelsea, and Ben Chilwell said, I said to him yesterday in saying, you're going to score, tomorrow, and the commentator said, why? Why did you say that to him? And Ben Chilwell said, because in training we were practicing these set pieces and every single one of them was falling to him and he was scoring every single one. So I said to him, you're going to score tomorrow. And the centre-half come on the interview and said, yeah, I felt confident after that, and I come on feeling like if an opportunity fell to me, I'd score. What happened? An opportunity fell to him. He put it in the back of the net. I just don't feel like we have any of that. I don't feel like we have any players at the moment that go on that pitch confident that they're going to put the ball in the back of the net. I think they gain confidence when they do score, but getting that first goal, there doesn't seem to be anybody that you look at and you go, if an opportunity falls to him, he backs himself. And that was proven. Maupay's chances, you could tell that he panicked. It was rushed. the Corey's chance was rushed. Had he had a little bit more sort of, as I said, calmness, collectiveness, maybe a little bit more confidence in his own ability, he'd have looked up, he'd have been able to knock that ball over to James Garner, who was free for the tap-in. Onana had the chance that he just blasted at the goalkeeper. Again, one of them where it seemed like the ball had fell to him and he'd gone, shit, let me just get a shot off here. Blasted at the keeper. Iwobi had one that he panicked with. Nathan Patterson had one where he's leaning back and he hits the bar. Why? Why are you not cool and composed and calm in that situation and thinking, do you know what, I'm just going to side foot this into the back of the net and, you know, I'm gonna put us 1-0 up. Why is the nobody at this football club currently who is composed in front of goal or, you know, believes in their own ability in front of goal? And that for me is a worry. The Blues says Calmar final ball isn't terrible. I mean the final ball as in the finish is what I mean. I don't mean the creativeness because we did create a lot. I mean the finish. I mean when the ball falls to somebody in the 6-yard box or outside the box, whoever that may be in that team, I don't feel like any of them back themselves to put it in the back of the net confidently. That's what I'm referring to. And that is why I was so frustrated on Saturday evening doing the instant match reaction, because we've known that this has been a problem for years. We've known that scoring goals has been a problem. We've known that having a forward up there that you can rely on to put the ball in the back of the net. And I'm not talking about an Erling Haaland who is going to bully people out the way and score hat-tricks every week. I'm not talking about somebody like a Mo Salah or Rashford who's going to create an opportunity for themselves out of nowhere. When people say, yeah, Cam, but these players don't want to come to Everton. No, you're right. The top level forwards don't want to come to Everton, but them top level forwards are capable of winning games of football on their own. They could be on that pitch on their own and they could still create a chance and score a goal. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about a striker that is confident in their own ability to put the ball in the back of the net. Because if Everton had one of them on Saturday, we'd have scored at least 2 or 3 goals. But we haven't. We've got forwards that are lacking in confidence, and we've got other players around the pitch who, when the ball falls to them and there's an opportunity on, you know, for a chance on goal, they panic. And they then ultimately end up making the wrong decision. And that is both worrying because we've seen what the consequences of having that problem are in the last 2 seasons, but it's also extremely frustrating. So when I was sitting here on Saturday shouting down the mic and you know and having a go at the club, it wasn't because I wanted views or because it was, you know, I was just a hothead and this, that and the other. It was because I've seen this film, this story, this book play out time and time and time again, and the outcome is always the same. If we do not bring a centre forward in, and forget Dominic Calvert-Lewin, because Dominic Calvert-Lewin might come back next week and he might be fit for 38 games, and if he is, then we'll be absolutely sound. Or he mightn't. And the last 2 seasons will tell you that the likelihood of him coming in and being fit for the majority of this season is very, very unlikely. There's more likelihood that he comes in and then he's out with injury, back in, out with injury, etc., etc. So Everton need to go out and bring in a centre forward that is confident in their own ability to put the ball in the back of the net. Now, okay, we've signed Jack Harrison in the last 24 hours and we've signed Yusuf Chamiti, who we haven't seen yet, and we didn't see an awful lot about of Danjuma. But even Danjuma, and I'm not having a go at Danjuma, by the way. I'm simply stating that he had one chance on the weekend, and maybe he knew he was offside and that's why he just hit it. Maybe you could say, well, that's unfair, but the goalkeeper was about 30 yards off his line and Danjuma put it wide. Now, again, wouldn't have counted anyway. Irrelevant point. He was offside. He knew he was offside, so he didn't care about the shot. But I still looked at that and thought, well, if that was an offside, that's a shocking miss. It's a shocking miss. So, and I'm not judging Danjuma, by the way, and saying he's not good enough. I know it was offside and you know, one of them, but I'm just using it as an example. We can't have 19 attempts in a Premier League game of football and not score and then walk away and go, well, it's all right because we had 19 attempts on goal. And some weeks we might win a game. And I'm sure it will. I'm sure some weeks we will win games in that fashion. And I'm sure some weeks we'll win 1-0 when the opposition team has 19 attempts on goal. But that's worrying for me. That's really, really, really worrying. And we ultimately need to fix that problem before the end of the transfer window. And like I said, for me, ideally, we need to fix it before Sunday's game against Aston Villa. Will we do that? Probably not. But ideally, we need to, because, yeah, for me, it's just, it's not, you know, it's not particularly. It's just worrying, isn't it? It's worrying when you think about the chances that we had, you know, and the little chances that Fulham had as well. If Everton had to come away with a point in that game, I'd have been sitting here frustrated, a little bit annoyed, but I'd have said, you know what, it's a point, we move forward, first game of the season, it's always a bit of a sloppy game, they're always a bit, you know, sort of here and there. But we've managed to lose a game against a team that had about 4 chances on goal to our 20-odd. And that can be seen as a, well, you know, it is what it is. We move on. You know, we created chances on another week would win that game. Or it could be seen, and this is how I see it, and this is because this is how I've seen the last 2 seasons, is, well, it's another winnable home game that we haven't won, and we've in fact lost. Which we now need to replace with an away game that we don't expect to win, that we go and win. So we lost to Fulham last season at Goodison, and that was a winnable home game that we lost, and thankfully we replaced that with a big win against Brighton, a game that none of us expected us to win. None of us. I almost feel like we now need to replace that Villa result with a big away win against a team that we don't really expect to beat. Or we need to go and do the right business in the transfer window between now and the end of it, to make sure that when we do get 19 chances in a game, we at least put one of them in the back of the net. And therefore, we aren't, you know, sitting here come April, May time, worrying about whether or not Everton are going to be a Premier League team next season. Now, like I said, I thought Everton started quite brightly in the game. Within the opening 5 or 6 minutes or so, Maupay had a chance. One of the chances that I don't necessarily blame him for missing. It was a difficult opportunity. He was running at goal, but he was running at an angle, and given that he is right-footed, he had to hit it with his right, and it was always going to be moving away from the goalkeeper. The only way he would have really, challenged the goalkeeper from that area, from that position, would have been if he'd have hit it with the outside of his foot. And I'm not quite sure Neal Maupay has the ability to hit a ball that well with the outside of his foot. And again, that's not me having a go at Neal Maupay. That's just me saying I just don't think he's good enough to be able to pull that skill off. And therefore, it would obviously have been a difficult one for him to score. But it was a good run. It was a good pass into him, and it was a good opportunity in the opening couple of minutes of the game. It was a good indicator of, right, okay, we're up for it today. And I actually felt like, in all fairness to Neal Maupay, no matter how many chances he missed, no matter how many opportunities he let go or he didn't take or whatever, he always seemed to keep his head up. And I don't doubt that Neal Maupay is a hard worker. You can see just by watching him, he's a hard worker. He runs around, he puts himself about, he battles. I don't doubt that Neal Maupay doesn't go in and give 110% every time he plays for Everton. I'm sure he does. And like I said, I think even when he was missing his opportunities the other day, he still seemed like he was, he was wanting to get in the right areas. He didn't hide. He wanted to get on the ball. He wanted to get, a chance at goal. He wanted to continue to get opportunities. Just unfortunately, he's just not good enough. For me, that's the paramount point now. Regardless of, there's no discussion point. The ultimate conclusion to this this player is that he isn't good enough in front of goal. And that's it. And as a centre forward for Everton, for where Everton are now and the way Everton play and the system Everton play, if you are a striker that does not score goals, then you are not good enough. And you need replacing. Like I said, his opportunity in the opening 10 minutes was a good one. Again, not one that is particularly easy to score, but it was a good, well-worked move. He got in behind the defender and he got a shot off. And it was positive signs from then on. Everton were on top. Everton were moving the ball. Everton were looking lively. However, there was always that threat from Fulham down that left-hand side. I said it on Saturday and I'll say it again. I felt like our right-hand side was terrible on Saturday. I thought James Garner, considering he was playing out of position on the ball, I thought he was okay. I thought he again, his overall play with the ball at his feet, passing-wise and creating space and, a couple of challenges, etc. I thought he was okay. Off the ball, I thought he was terrible. I thought he was terrible. And Nathan Patterson, I thought, was a disaster as well. Now, I'm not saying Nathan Patterson is a terrible footballer and should never play for Everton ever again, and he's not good enough. What I'm saying is on Saturday afternoon, he was terrible. Because on Saturday afternoon, he was terrible. And for me, this is where I'm a little bit confused with the manager and the manager's decision-making. You could tell, in my opinion, from the opening 10 minutes, that right-hand side was being targeted by Fulham. Willian was getting on the ball, and I don't know, I don't understand the Willian thing. I don't, because there's a lot of talk at the moment that Willian is debating whether or not to move to Saudi. Obviously, he moved back to Fulham in the summer after being released, and then there's been talk that, he was talking to a Saudi club, he then moved to Fulham, now he's back talking to a Saudi club. So I always felt going into this game, get into Willian, put it on his toes, give him a hard challenge. I'm not saying injure him or go through him, but give him a bit of a hard challenge, let him know you're there, and he probably will back away and go, actually, do you know what? Do I really want to risk getting injured here if I'm going to have to complete a medical in a couple of weeks for, a move that will change my life in terms of the money I'm going to be getting? Probably not. But we never did that. Patterson never got close enough to him to make a challenge. He absolutely ran Patterson ragged in the opening 10-15 minutes. Garner never really supported him in that area of the pitch, probably because he's not a right winger and therefore wasn't used to playing there. And what happens at half-time? Willian gets a little bit of a knock, in the opening 35 minutes and goes off at half-time. Now, had we have negated that problem 10-15 minutes, 5-10 minutes into the game, we would have caused much less issue, but we couldn't, because Patterson was getting nowhere near Willian. And the overlap from Anthony Robinson was completely pulling James Garner out of position as well. I just felt like for the whole game, the right-hand side was a disaster. And I also felt like you could tell that was the case 5-10 minutes into the game. You could tell that right-hand side was going to struggle. What I personally would have done is I'd have put Iwobi over there. And I'd have put James Garner on Ashley Young's side. Because Ashley Young ultimately is a more experienced fullback and better at dealing with that. And I'd have had Iwobi over there to provide a defensive cover for Nathan Patterson. Or I'd have taken Patterson off at half-time and just gone, listen, lad, we're taking you off. Might be a bit harsh, but you've not had a great half there. We're taking you off. I'd have put James Garner at right back and I'd have brought Dan Juman on the wing. Give him 45 minutes. Why he come on for 10 minutes in a game that we needed to get something out of is beyond me. But I just felt, and again, maybe, it's a bit unfair to criticise James Garner because he's playing out of position and he's just trying to do his best. But he ain't a winger. He ain't a right midfielder. And positionally off the ball, he showed that he was a fault for the goal. He was miles away from the play for the goal. And he ultimately, him being on the side of Patterson after Patterson, has had a tough 10-15 minutes and is struggling and isn't particularly, doing well. was just a disaster waiting to happen. And all that happened then was they targeted our right-hand side. The goal come from that side. And the majority of their attack and play, although they didn't have much of it, come from that right-hand side. So they always had that threat down that right-hand side. But Everton also had the threat. We were going up the other end and we were creating opportunities for ourselves. As I said, the Corey has that chance. Mopai has that chance. It's unlucky. The Corey then has one, not that long after, where he's got a one-on-one opportunity. If he looks up, and he keeps himself cool and he keeps himself calm and he's composed. He looks up, he sees James Garner is standing in an onside position with absolutely nobody around him, and he passes the ball calmly to James Garner, and James Garner rifles it in the back of the net, and Everton are 1-0 up. But he doesn't. He panics, he's not composed, and he has a shot at goal, and ultimately, it gets saved. And again, you're sitting there thinking, well, that's a big chance missed. A big chance missed. Mopai has one where the ball falls to him 5 yards out. He manages to hit the goalkeeper. He has another one, a one-on-one chance where he takes a shot, and you can tell that, he's clearly got no confidence at this point. He very clearly is struggling to lift himself and to give himself that confidence. He manages to hit the goalkeeper. But then we do get the ball in the back of the net. Cross comes in. Goalkeeper rises for it. Tarkowski stands there and stands his ground and does absolutely nothing wrong. The goalkeeper drops the ball, having never been in control of it. And Michael Keane, puts the ball into an empty net effectively. However, Stuart Atwell, who, by the way, was an absolute disgrace. An absolute disgrace on Saturday afternoon. He was terrible. Absolutely terrible. And he is a terrible referee. He's always terrible, but he was exceptionally terrible on Saturday afternoon. Blows his whistle before the ball has hit the back of the net. Why? Is the whole point of VAR to not allow these situations to unfold and allow these situations to conclude and then go to VAR to see if there's been a clear and obvious error? Why is the referee not allowing that to play out? And then once that goal is scored by Michael Keane, which he was always going to score, by the way, and the referee knew he was always going to score because the ball was dropping to him 5 yards from goal with an empty goal, so he was always going to put it in. Why is the referee not waiting for that ball to cross the line, then blowing the whistle, calling for a foul, and then it going to VAR? Why? Explain to me. Somebody now give me an explanation as to why Stuart Atwell did not follow the rules. And Mickey says, I can't see Cam. It's a black screen, and Tazul says not loading. Is anybody else having an issue? Is everybody else's live stream fine, or is there an issue with everyone else's? Please let me know in the comments. Why is Stuart Atwell not followed the rules? I would love to know. I would love to know. I would love to sit down with Stuart Atwell and say, can you just explain to me why that whistle was blown before that ball hit the back of the net? Because he wouldn't have an explanation for me. He wouldn't. And neither would the FA, neither would the Premier League, neither would the PGMOL or whatever that nonsense organisation is. Because the reality is he did not follow the rule. The rule clearly states that you wait until the situation has concluded itself, then you make your decision, and then that decision is checked. That's why in the last 2 years we've seen offsides be allowed to play on for about 15 fucking minutes before they're then given when they're blatantly onside. Ben Godfrey was injured last season in a game on the opening day of the season against Chelsea for a decision that was offside but allowed to continue play until the actual phase of play played out. Ben Godfrey was injured because a decision wasn't made quicker, because the rule is you allow it to play out and then you make the decision. So why is it different when Everton scored a goal, Mr. Atwell? Why is it different? Blue says incompetence is the only answer. who else? Some of the ridiculous decisions as 1878, nonsense decisions as Wormy. As I said, these referees, it's the only profession in the world where they can make mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake, and not only do those mistakes go unpunished, but those mistakes then get rectified in interviews and in articles stating why we should have more patience with referees and why referees are the best thing since sliced bread. No, mate, it's a load of bollocks. It's an absolute load of bollocks. If a footballer makes a mistake as bad as that, they're criticised online and they're criticised in the media, and the Sky Sports are jumping all over them. If a manager makes a decision like that, they're criticised everywhere. Why is it that when a referee makes a bad decision, not only are they not criticised, but excuses are made up for them? Oh, well, it's hard and the game is running out, and this is the reason as to why he blew the whistle, because he's seen this, he's seen that. No, it's all a load of bollocks. What he did was make an awful decision that should be punished. He should be brought into the office and said, listen, that's poor. You cannot go against the rules. And if you do it again, then you'll be suspended into the championship or whatever. And I'm not just saying this from a bitter Evertonian standpoint because we lost the game, because I don't think we lost the game because of Stuart Atwell's decision. I think we lost the game because we had 19 chances on goal and we couldn't put one of them in the back of the net, and that's the fault of Everton Football Club. That's the fault of the recruitment team for not bringing in a striker. But that decision, there's not one person on this planet, Stuart Atwell included, that could sit there with me, watch that over again and say, yes, that is the right decision. Now, fine, referees make mistakes. Referees get things wrong. He might, the angle he might have been looking at it at, he mightn't have seen it in real time, and he might look at it and go, oh, I didn't see it like that. Sorry, I seen it in, real time. It was fast, and I thought it was a foul. Sound. That's what VAR's there for, mate. So you let it play out. You don't blow your whistle. You think, oh, I'm not quite sure what's going on there, so I'll let that play out, and then I'll have a look at it. And then VAR would have told you that it was a perfectly good goal, and to allow the goal, and we would have moved on. There's not one Fulham fan on this planet that could look at that goal and say they would have been disappointed if it was given. The goalkeeper didn't call for a foul. So why was it then given? Why was play not allowed to be played on? Because if that's going to be the case now, if we're going to have situations where the referees just blow the whistle anyway, then what's the point? Why didn't Mo Salah's goal stand against Chelsea yesterday? What's the point? May as well not look at VAR. Don't need it. Why didn't Ben Chilwell's goal stand against Liverpool? Don't need it. What's the point in it? You cannot pick and choose when you follow the rules. You can't do that. And that decision for me should be punished. He should be sent down to the Championship for a week, or it should be public that he's been spoken to and he understands that he needs to, he should have allowed play to go on. Not brushed under the carpet. Don't worry about it. We'll pat you on the back, Stuart. You'll get another Premier League game next week. Where's the explanation? This is Premier League football. A player has just transferred from one Premier League club to another today for over £115 million. This is a league where the top 4 teams, or 4 of the top big 6 teams, Manchester City, Arsenal, Chelsea, 3 of them, have all got £100 million players in them. Chelsea have got 2 £100 million players in there. This is a league where every place is worth millions of pounds. Relegation is detrimental if you don't come back up financially. Winning the league is humongous financially. Hundreds of millions of pounds being thrown about left, right and centre. A multi-billion pound organisation. And we allow these mistakes to just be swept under the carpet. Now, again, I'm not blaming Stuart Atwell for Everton not winning the game. I'm blaming Everton for not, being, not ultimately having a player there up front that's capable of scoring goals. But if we score that goal, then who knows what happens. We sit 10 men behind the ball, we win the game 1-0. Even if it still pans out the way it did, we get a point. That point at the end of the season might be what keeps Everton in the league and what doesn't. And that decision could ultimately be detrimental to Everton. And it will be allowed to just be forgot about. Why? Got no problem with Stuart Atwell thinking it's a foul because of real time and the way in which, he's seen it, his angle, etc., etc. No problem with that. My problem is, why does he blow the whistle before that ball crosses the line? Why? You allow the play to carry on, and then VAR takes a look at it, and that's a nonsense decision. And Stuart Atwell is a terrible, terrible referee, by the way. He is. I don't care what anybody says. He is a terrible, terrible referee. But there's no excuse for that. And after that moment, again, the frustration's starting to build. Fulham still are getting down that left-hand side. They're still causing us problems. They're still being, a bit of a nuisance in there. But Everton are still getting forward and creating chances. Mopai had another one, I think, that he put wide. Onana had one that was brilliantly played by Iwobi on the counter-attack. He come over, he switched the ball, and Onana, again, just hits it. Straight at the goalkeeper. No real sort of confidence, no real collective calmness in front of goal, just hits it at the goalkeeper. And then we go in for half-time, and I remember sitting there thinking two things. Firstly, is this going to be another one of them afternoons where we just rue our chances, where we're sitting there at 5 o'clock thinking, how have we lost that game? And do you know, if we were Man City, or even if we were Palace or Brighton or Fulham or whatever, if we were a team that the last 2 seasons we'd just finished bang mid-table and we were all right, and there is a high likelihood that we'd finish bang mid-table this season as well, I'd look at that and go, do you know what? Unlucky. That's one of them days where you create loads of chances and it doesn't come off for you. You move on. But we're not. I reiterate again, we survived last season on the final day of the season. At half time on that final day of the season, Everton were relegated. So I'm sorry if you don't like it. I'm sorry if you disagree with me. I'm sorry if you think I'm being overreactive. But I cannot just sit here and go, oh well, one of them games. We move on from it and we move forward. Every time Everton lose, it worries me and it angers me, because I said this on Saturday, I'm not quite sure I can go through another season like the last 2. I'm not quite sure I can sit here in April and say, I think Everton are getting relegated. And then by May, be thinking, oh, maybe we're not, maybe we'll be all right. I don't think I can do that again. So when we lose games, whether it's the first game of the season, whether it's in January, whether it's in May, it frustrates me massively. And especially when we've had that many chances to score goals. If Everton had won that game 5-1, nobody would have said, "Oh, that's a bit of a flattering scoreline. They don't deserve that." Nobody could have said that. Nobody, not even a Fulham fan. They would have looked at it and gone, "Yeah, that's about right." And that's why it's so frustrating. We come out in the second half, as I said. There was always a fear that we'd rue our chances. There was always a fear that we would come back to bite us on the arse. The manager doesn't make any changes. He keeps that right-hand side the same as what it had been in the first half, even though there were worrying signs and there were signs that it wasn't working. Fulham grow into the game a little bit more. They obviously take off Willian at half-time for Bobby Decode over Reed. He comes on, adds a little bit of pace, adds a little bit more directness to their squad. And Fulham then, as the second half went on, started to grow a little bit more into the game. And Everton were still getting forward. Everton were still, formulating opportunities. Not quite as many clear chances as we had in the first half, in terms of the one-on-ones that we had and missed. But we were still formulating chances. I thought Iwobi had a decent game. I thought the midfield were poor, I'll be honest. I thought Onana, again, in moments he looked alright. But, I was talking to my dad this morning and for me, Amadou Onana this season really needs to start imposing himself on games of football. And interestingly enough, he's been linked with a move to Manchester United today. And whether or not that happens, we'll wait and see. But for me, he needs to start imposing himself on games of football. Far too many times, Onana goes missing in games. He'll make a slide challenge in the 10th minute, and then he won't do anything else of note until the second half. And then he might do something else on the 50th minute, and then he goes missing again for another 15 minutes. He's a midfielder who is, 6'3", 6'4". He needs to start imposing himself on games of football. He needs to start being the player that opposition teams see in the tunnel and go, oh my God, I do not want to play against him today. He is going to be absolutely horrible to play against. Because that's what he should be. Big, physical. You know, he's got all the attributes. Good on the ball, passing quality good. He's got all the attributes to be a big nuisance in the middle of the park. But he just doesn't do it comfortably enough. And Jack says could have had 2 or 3 assists. Yeah, he could have. And again, I'm not saying he was awful, by the way. I'm just saying I just expect a little bit more from him. I do. I expect a little bit more from him. And hopefully we get that. As I said, he's been linked with the move to Man United today. I think it would be silly for Everton to allow that to happen, but we'll wait and see. But yeah, again, I just want more from him. Maybe that's me expecting too much. Maybe I'm looking at it in a different way because we lost. But I just want more from him. Anyway, we goes up again. As like I said, Fulham are growing into the game a little bit more. Fulham are starting to get into it a little bit more. We had another chance. Ball comes across the box. I can't remember who it was. Was it Iwobi that hit it onto the bar? Ball falls for Nathan Patterson, and it wasn't. Ball falls for Nathan Patterson, and he rifles it onto the bar from 15 yards out with an open goal. Again, I go back to the point I was making at the start of the video, that is, we do not have a player in this squad, whether it be a centre forward, whether it be a right back, whether it be a centre midfielder, that is confident enough in their ability in front of goal. And when the ball falls to them, they think, do you know what, I'm going to put this in the back of the net. And I likened it to the David Moyes teams on Saturday because I've been hearing a lot of comparisons about Sean Dyche's side to David Moyes' sides. Well, this season, it'll be like the Moyes season. It won't be exciting. It won't be great to watch, but we'll win games 1-0. We'll be scruffy. We'll grab wins. We'll win at home, etc., etc. And that's how we'll stay up. And I agree. That's how we'll stay up, if we can do that. But what David Moyes always had was, even when he didn't have an out-and-out striker, and if you could hit that like button, by the way, that would mean a massive, massive amount to me. And if you are new, don't forget to subscribe. We are now really, really, really close. I think we're about 60 subscribers away from 8,000. So if you could subscribe, that would be unbelievable. Moyes, when he didn't have a goal-scoring centre-forward per se, what he always had was other players in that team that could score goals. Whether it be Seamus Coleman, whether it be Leighton Baines, whether it be Manuel Fellaini, Tim Cahill, Mikel Arteta. He always had players that if the ball fell to them in a good area, you'd put Leon Osman, Stephen Pienaar, you would put your money on them putting it in the back of the net. We haven't got that now. The ball falls to Nathan Patterson, and listen, you can make all the excuses in the world for him. He's only young, he's a right back, it fell to him awkwardly, he was leaning back. Got to put that ball in the back of the net. Got to put that ball in the back of the net. He doesn't, he panics because he doesn't know what to do. He hits the bar, and then ultimately we miss that chance. Fulham get one opportunity. Just before this, we had a bit of a scare. Just before Mitrovic come on, Raul Jimenez, his last involvement was he turned and he hit the post. Again, a little bit of a scare. You know, Fulham showing that they are capable of creating opportunities, and again showing that Everton will rue these chances if they don't take one of them. But we didn't. Fulham break up the other end. Patterson is dragged out to the left-back position, therefore meaning that one of James Garner, Amadou Onana, Adissa Gay, Abdoulaye Doucouré should then cover that right-back position because the right-back has been dragged out, so that right-back position needs covering. It wasn't. James Garner was miles away from it. The ball comes in, and Bobby Decordova puts it in the back of the net. And all of a sudden, that then completely killed the atmosphere. There wasn't much of an atmosphere anyway inside the Goodison Park, but that completely killed it because the realisation set in of, wow, this is just like watching last season. We are just the same team as we were last season. It just feels like a continuation of that season. We then make a couple of changes with 10 minutes to go. We bring Danjuma on, we bring Dobbin on, neither of whom had much of an impact on the game because they were on for 10 minutes. Danjuma, as I said, had that one chance that I think he should do better with. Some people will disagree, that's fair enough. And then Fulham had another half chance where, again, Decordova is left on the back post completely on his own and probably should do better with the chance, but he doesn't. And then ultimately the game plays out. Everton can't create any more. Fulham sit back. Fulham are happy. They've been practically battered all game. 19 shots on goal, and yet they've come away with a win. Fulham sit back. The game sort of plays out. We huff and puff a little bit in the last 10-15 minutes. Dan Juma has come on, just before Fulham had scored. We huff and puff for a little bit, but ultimately we nothing comes of it, and we end up losing the game. And like I said, for me, an incredibly frustrating afternoon, because some people will look at it and go, well, it's positive. We created a lot of chances, this, that, and the other. For me, like I said, maybe it's a negative approach, maybe it's a pessimistic approach, but Everton survived with 45 minutes to go in May. We had 19 shots at goal on Saturday and lost the game. That for me is terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. And, fair enough, we've brought Jack Harrison in today. Fair enough, Dom is playing in a behind closed doors game this week. And hopefully he'll be fitter and he'll be ready to start on Sunday. Danjuma obviously will be fitter. You've got Chimiti there. We might have, hopefully another name in before next week. But we need to really, really, really pull our finger out now in terms of business. And bring in players that are confident in front of goal or putting the ball in the back of the net. Positives, like I said, I think Iwobi done well. I think the centre-halves were okay. Probably a fault for the goal, but I thought Keane was, didn't do much wrong all game. I thought Tarkowski similarly. I thought Pickford was sound. I actually, like I said, with the exception of his finishing being terrible, I actually think Mopé probably had his best game in an Everton shirt. He's just dreadful at putting the ball in the back of the net, and ultimately that means he's not good enough. But I thought his movement and, him getting on the ball was better than it has been in certainly recent times. But there you go, we've lost it. All we can do is move on and hope that, like I said, maybe we'll get a shock result on Sunday. Maybe we'll go and beat Aston Villa. They've been beaten this weekend. Maybe they'll be a little bit unconfident. Maybe we'll go and beat Aston Villa and we'll all say, do you know what, that makes up for Fulham. But like I said in the season preview, you simply can't be losing these games at Goodison Park that are against teams that we should be beating. And Fulham are one of them. Whether they had a good season last season, Fulham are one of them teams. And the next game at Goodison is against Wolves, and they certainly are a team that we have to win, that we have to beat, So we'll wait and see. Anyway, we're going to leave it there. If you have enjoyed this one, please do leave a like. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you're new. Like I said, that would mean a massive amount to me. We'll be back over the next couple of days with more transfer updates and videos, so don't forget to look out for them. Big thank you all for watching, and we'll see you soon.